Hello friends, welcome back. In this next stage, I will show you how to connect to the database, create columns, insert data, and check for validations, as well as printing the data, uploading photos, resetting the fields, and exiting the windows. All right, so please sit, relax, and enjoy this process. All right, so for this first stage, first of all, we have to start by, so let us work on our upload button. Okay, so let me show you the functionality of this upload button. So a situation like this, when you click on this upload button, it opens up a file dialog for you. So this is an area where you can then go and select a picture. Okay, so that is exactly what the line of code is going to do for us. So you can go any photo of your choice and then pick any picture of your choice and then open this up. And this displays on this photo frame. So there are other stages of this code. There are other stages of resizing the photo and returning the resized copy, and then a parameter for files format and all of that. So those are the things that are going to be under our upload button. Okay, so let's go down and start with our upload button here. All right, so first of all, go down to our upload button and then give a command to that. So this is a command. I'm just going to call it upload. And then going to the top of my other codes here. Let me just do this here. And then define that button. So the definition is actually what we want the code to do for us. What are the functionalities of that button, all right? Or you can just simply copy this here to be on the safe side so you don't have to experience an error. And then paste this down here. And then our parentheses and this. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to make a variable called file name global. Okay, the reason is because I'm going to be making use of that name, that variable name multiple times. So it's best to make it global so that each line, whenever each line of that code is being called, is going to perform that line of code that is being attached to the variable name. Okay, so they do not have to clash whenever they're being called. All right, so that's basically why I'm going to be making use of this variable name globally. Okay, so I'm just going to say global and then give a name, file name. So this variable, I would be making use of it multiple times in this code process. All right, the next is to start by creating a parameter for files format. All right, so now I'm going to mention the name of this, our variable file name, and then I would use it to, so this line of code is going to help us to open a file. It's more like a directory where you can go and select every type of picture format. Okay, so this is going to help us to accept different formats of pictures or file rather. So we can use a JPEG, we can use a PNG, we can use a TXT text. All right, so here you're going to specify all of that. So whenever you pick whenever you choose any kind of file, it's going to display it on that picture frame. Okay, all right, so now this is going to be our file dialog. Okay, so we're going to experience error here because I haven't imported this module from tkinter. So simply go to the top of my screen and then say from tkinter import file dialog. And then we shouldn't be having that error again. All right, so that is it. And then is to ask an open file name. So in here, I'm going to specify the type of image file that I will be using. So first of all, this is going to be in an OS form dot get this, and then giving the title of the file names that would be used in the process. So that depends on your choice. So I'm just going to say title is just going to be select image file, and then give this a comma. And then here I'm going to include my file types. Okay, so these file types are going to be here. I'm going to have a JPEG. It's going to be a JPEG file. And then I'm going to have a comma. And then this is going to be in .jpeg. Okay, so I think I've exceeded the line. I can move this down here. Okay, so next is going to be my PNG. So this is going to be my PNG file. Okay, and this is going to be .png. Okay, so that's a type of file format. All right, and then you can also include a text. So this is going to be an all files in text format. Okay, and this is going to be in .txt. Sorry, and that is just simply so. Let me take this. Let me get this down here so you can see this clearly. Okay, so this is, let me give a comment here so you can understand. So this parameter is for files formats. Okay, so now the next stage is for us to be able to open the selected file. Okay, and that's where this line of code comes in. And then I'm going to use my img. And then, so the img is more like a variable that we're going to be using along the line. So this line of code now is to open the selected file. Okay, so here I'm just going to use my it's going to be in that image dot open, and then I'm going to call the name of this variable, the file name that I have called here, that I have declared there already. And then I'm just going to give a comment here. And so this line of code is actually to open the selected file. And then the next stage is to help to return a resized copy of that image. Okay, so I'm just going to call this image. This is a variable image resize. So this is going to help us to resize the image after we have selected the image. So now I'm going to call the name of that image that we have opened here now. Okay, and the line of the variable for that is img. So I'm going to say img dot resize widget, and then this is going to help us to resize this in the actual size that we want. So in my height and the width, I will be using this sizes. So this is actually your choice. This is actually optional. Okay, so this line of code is to return a resized copy of the selected image. Okay, and for the next stage is make the image compatible with tkinter. Okay, so after you've selected the image now is going to display on our GUI, and the GUI is being produced using our tkinter. So in order for that image to be compatible with that tkinter, you're going to have to run through a line of code in order for that to be recognized on our tkinter. So that's basically what this line of code is going to do for us. So I'm just going to say selected underscore image. Okay, and then we're going to be making use of our image tkinter, and then dot image. And then I'm going to call the name of that variable that is holding where our picture is going to be resized. Okay, so now I'm going to include that resized picture down here so that it will be compatible with tkinter. So I'm going to call that variable that I've declared for that purpose. Okay, so here this line of code is to, okay, so this is to make the image compatible with tkinter. All right, so that is it. So now the next stage now is to configure that selected image. Okay, so now let's configure that selected image. So I'm going to say my LBL dot configure. Okay, so my LBL is actually what I have declared here for our image down here. It's LBL that is holding that image frame. Okay, so after we've done that, after we've configured that, the next is to attach that selected image in that LBL, or rather on that LBL. So after I have called my LBL, which is a label, and then I'm going to include the, I'm going to call the image is going to be equal to our selected image down here. This, I'm going to simply copy this here and paste it down here. So this is going to help us to configure this selected image. So we're just going to say this is to configure the selected image. So the next line is to attach that selected image in, or rather on the created frame, which is this. So when you select the image, it's going to, after the configuration, then it's going to post it down on this label frame down here. Okay, so that is what this line of code is going to do for us. So I'm simply going to call the name of the LBL again, dot image, and then simply going to be that selected image. All right, so this line of code is to attach the selected image on the created label frame. All right, okay, so let's try this. Let's run this. Okay, so after this, all right, so let's just run this first so we can see that. All right, so I'm going to click on this upload button, and then this pops up, so you can go anywhere and pick any picture of your choice. Okay, so I have a few stored here, so I'm just going to pick any one here, and then there it is. It's now on the frame. Okay, so the next thing is to ensure that once you select this image, is going to be saved in a selected folder. Okay, and then that folder is going to be the folder that you have created for this project. Okay, so that's the next line of code that we would be doing right now. So what you're going to do is try to remember the name of the folder you have created for this, and then we can save this. So I'm just going to say my img, which is the image that I have opened down here. my img here, dot save. Okay, so now I can include the folder. So I'm just simply going to go down and look for the folder that I have created for this project. So there it is. Okay, I can directly do this on my desktop here. So this is it. I'm just going to right click to this, go to my property, and then here it is. This is the location of the folder. So I'm just going to copy this down, go down to my code, and then fix this down here. And then for all these other escape characters here, all these other tabs, I'm just simply going to, in order for tkinter to recognize this, I'm going to escape this by using my escape characters. So I'm just going to use a double and make this a double, because if this is not included, we're going to experience some errors. Okay, so after that is done, next is to include the name of the folder. All right, so I've copied that, and now this is the name of the folder. Next is to copy this, go down to the code, and then I'm just going to go down here and then give a double tab as well, and then paste this down there. Okay, so next now is to, okay, so just going to close this and then give this going to be in form of a string, and then include my okay, so if not put this down here. Yeah, so this is going to be an addition. So whatever is going to be here is going to be saved in this folder. So that's basically what this is going to be for us. Okay, so the name changes in a string form and then saved in this folder. So that's what this line of code is going to do for us. All right, so now is to pick out this selected image that we have used here. Okay, so that image that has been selected and resized and all of that, just gonna paste it here. Okay, and then this is going to be in form of a JPEG. Okay, because this is a JPEG that we're trying to save here. Okay, this is going to be .jpg. Okay. All right, so that is it. So this is to save the image in the selected folder. All right, so let me run this. Okay, so let's take notes before we observe the changes. So this is the folder, School Management Project. So this is the folder that I have created for this project. So now I want to put something into that folder, which is this image. Now I'm going to run this and I click on my upload button, and this takes me down to wherever I want to pick a picture. Okay, so I could pick up, let me pick this, and then open this up here, and that should be saved in the folder. Okay, so let me go down to the folder. All right, there it is. It's been saved down here. Okay, so that's just simply it. Okay, so the next stage now, we are done with our upload button. So the next stage is to work on our register button. Okay, so the next is to work on our register button. Okay. All right, so now let's start with our register button. Okay. So let's understand the functionalities of our register button. So basically, our register button is the first stage is to help us to validate all of these entry fields. Okay, if there's simply any omission here, we're going to get a message in a message box that the data or one of the entry fields are empty, or we should ensure that data has been entered on the entry field. So the basic thing is that the entry fields is the mandatory for data to be imputed in all of these entry fields, including our radio button and our option menu. All right, so it is a necessity. So that's for the first stage. So if that is not done, you have to go back and ensure that that is done before you proceed to the next stage. And for the next stage is after all of that is done and you click on register, we're going to get the piece of information on this data frame. Okay. All right. So, well, let's assume the student ID is this, and then first name, you can say Frank. And then last name going to be Sage. And then for the date of birth, we can say 22nd Feb, that. And then for the religion is going to be Christian. Okay, so that's an assumption. And then for the class, you can say maybe the person is a senior high. And then father's name, I'm going to say Mr. Sage. And then for the mother's name, so let's just omit the mother's name and then proceed to the next. So the home address, let's just say 22 Ashford Street. And then let's say it's a male, and the country and phone number could be any of that. The name, Mr. Ben. As for the next of kin, and then phone number is going to be that. And then you upload a picture. Okay, just upload a picture, that, and then you try to register. Like I said, when you try to register this, we're going to get a message here telling us that to ensure that all of the details or data have been entered in all the fields. So like I said, this is mandatory. You have to ensure that every piece of information are being imputed on the entry field. You do not omit anyone. So that is what this is going to do for you. If you don't, you're going to go back and start afresh and do. So you have to ensure that the entry fields are being occupied with a piece of required information. Okay, so if I try to register this, it's not right. So here it says, please ensure all data have been entered on the fields, and everything is going to go back. So everything, you're just going to ensure that you go back and do that before you proceed to the next stage. But if all of these are false, this piece of information is going to appear on this text frame. And then we're going to get a message that this information has been stored in the database. All right, so that is what our register button is going to do for us. Okay, there is still more for checking if a student ID. We all know students do have unique IDs, so we're going to run a code to check for that piece of information if it does exist on the database. If it does, we're going to get a message. Okay, all right, I can reset this here and try to check for, I think I have registered number 1. I've used that student ID. So if I try to use it to save up on someone else's data, we're going to get the message that that piece of ID does exist on the database. Okay, so this is just for test purpose. Okay, so I'm just using whatever I'm using. This is not going to be saved on the database, okay, because the student ID doesn't exist. Okay, so I can just simply pick a picture. Okay, whatever picture, and just try to save this. Right, now you see ID already exists. Now if you notice, all the information that I have put here has been disappeared. So when you put an information that that the student ID has already been saved on the database, every other piece of information is going to wipe out. So you have to go and start afresh. All right, so that is how this is going to run for us. All right, so now let's get started with this process. Okay, let's start with our register button. Okay, so before we do that, simply going to go down to our register button down here. Okay, there's our register button, and then give a command to that and call this register. And I'm going to copy this. Okay, copy this and then proceed to the top of my screen. And then define the functionality of this button, giving a parenthesis and that. All right, so for the first stage, I will be making use of some variables and making them global because I'm going to be mentioning those names multiple times. So I'm going to make them global. So let me just do that. I will be making use of the img, which is going to help us to save, to register this and save it in a folder for us, the picture actually, which we have declared here. And then I'm going to use a connect variable, which is going to be for our database. So this is going to help us to connect to the database. So I'm just going to declare this variable here. All right. Okay, so now is to check for the validations, okay, so by using our if statements to condition the fields. Okay, so let me just give this a comment and say validations. So we're going to use our if statements to condition the fields, entry fields actually. All right, so now I'm going to say if my id entry name dot get, if that is empty, or, so this is where I'm going to call all of the fields. So the first one is going to be first entry name dot get. Okay, if that is equivalent to that, okay, or I have the last name entry dot get, if that is empty, or the date of birth dot get, if that is empty, or okay, okay, let me move this down here. And then make this up here. Okay, or so after our date of birth, I'm going to have my home that's my home address entry dot get, and if this is empty, or I'm going to have my okay, I think just so I do not miss out on anything, so after my home address, okay, so let's look down here. We have our religion entry, we have our class entry. Okay, so before this we should have before our home address entry we should have our um, religion entry, sorry, religion entry dot get. Okay, so if this is equivalent to that, or the next is the class entry. Okay, so you can actually just copy this here and then paste it here dot get. So if that is equivalent to this, or so the next is the father entry. Okay, so this is class entry. This is going to be posted here. Dot get. Okay, sorry. This is not. This is so I'm going to go over here and paste this. Dot get. So if this is empty, I'm going to use my or. So I'm going to give this over here and take this out, right? So after our father, we have the mother name entry. I'm going to copy this, and then this is going to be here. Okay, so this is going to be here. After our father entry, we have our mother entry here. I'm going to copy this and then paste it down here. Dot get, and no, not get integer. This is simply just getting a piece of information from the field. And then if this is empty, or I don't think this is going to be supposed to be here. It's supposed to be here. All right. Please take correction of that so you don't experience error. All right. So now we have gotten to our home address. The next is going to be our gender. So gender. You can post this here. Gender.get. And this is equivalent to that, or the next is going to be the variable which is holding the piece of information for country, and then whatever you select there, or if you don't select, you're going to get an error. And this is that. Okay, we're going to the next line, and then you can say or after our variable, we're having the phone number of, this is phone number entry. This is here, dot get. So if this is empty, or next is going to be our next of kin entry. And this is empty, or the phone number of next of kin. And then we're having this is empty. Then, so if that is true, we're going to get a message box popped up to us. Okay, so this is where you can import your message box down here. This is the message box that you're going to import from tkinter. Import message box. All right, so after you have done that, you can then go down and make use of your message box. So I'm going to say message box dot show error. Okay, so this is simply going to give us an error that an entry field has been omitted. Okay, so for here I'm just going to say please ensure data have been entered on or fields. All right, so that's this might be too much, but you can decide to use what you want to use here. Okay, so if that is that, this should return back for you to ensure that that piece of information has been entered before we proceed to the next stage. Okay, all right, so the next stage now is to display the details. If all of this is false, then it should display the data on this frame. Okay, so here we're going to make use of our else statement. else do this for me. All right. So here I'm going to call the student or the data frame, and this is the name of the text frame here, student details text frame. So here is going to help us to insert those piece of information on that data frame. So here I'm just going to do this right now. Okay, so let me I'm going to post this. All right, so I'm just going to make this easier and just paste them here. Okay, so this is going to help us to insert all of these details into our student details text frame. Okay, and these are the piece of information that would be required, and these are the entry fields that is going to help us to paste that corresponding to the required piece of information. So here we're having student registration number, and the required entry field is our ID entry name dot get. The first is our first name, and here it is. Then the last name. So you're just going to join me to just do this together, okay? All right, so the next one is going to be our last name entry dot get. The next is the date of birth. The next is our religion entry. The next is the class entry. The next is father's name entry, and the next is mother's name entry. Next is our home address entry. The next is gender. The next is the country, which is our variable one holding that piece of information. Okay, you can decide to change that name. That's your choice. And we have the phone number, which is, no, which is this. And then for the next of kin, which is the this is name of next of kin, and then we're going to have the phone number of next of kin. We're going to have phone number of next of kin entry. Okay, so that is done. Here is just simply ending the piece of information. So we would not be needing this other entry field. This is just going to go away, and we're going to be having just this to end the process. Okay, all right, so let us try this. Let's run this and check how this is going to work for us. Okay, so let's assume this is number, and we'll say Ashley Ashley Benson, and date of birth is 22nd December that, and she's a Christian in the class. Oh, okay, let's just say she is in that. And the father's name, say Mr. Van. Okay, Mr. Van Benson. And the mother's name, Mrs. Jane Benson. And our home address is number 3 Zenith Street. Okay, let's assume she's a female, and country of your choice could be anyone. Phone number is going to be any of that, and then her next of kin is going to be Mr. Kenneth, Joe, and then that phone number is going to be whatever of that. And then you could upload a picture. You have a picture of your choice, and then let's see, this is going to appear here. There it is. And then this is the end of the piece of information. All right, so this is working perfectly fine. We're having a T here that was not okay, so we can work on that. Okay. All right, so that is working well. I'm going to go down to my C. Okay, so that's where we're having the issue. Okay, so that should be gone away. All right, so after that is done, the next stage is to connect to the database. All right, so guys, this is the part where you need to focus more. Okay, so we have more on this stage. Okay, all right, so if all of these are false, then the next is to take down those pieces of information and save them in the database. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. Now you remember vividly, I already declared a variable here for my database, which I know that I'll be using frequently. So it was best I make it global, because for each other line of code, this variable is going to perform a certain line of code for me. So in order for this not to clash, it's best to make them global so they can identify each line of code that they would perform when they're being called. All right. Okay, so now let us proceed to the next stage. So now is to connect to the database. Okay, so I'm just going to give a comment here. This is going to be database connection. So here I'm going to call that variable, and this is going to help us to connect to the database, and the database that we would be using here is SQLite. We're experiencing this error because I have not imported my SQLite in Python. So I'm just going to simply go to the top and then import my SQLite3. There are two ways to this. Okay, you can go here and then you can right click, or you can just go and then you can import this from here, or you can go to the screen here top and just import this. All right, so now the error is gone away. Next is to then connect to the database. All right, so for this stage now is to then create the database itself. Then we can start with creating the table and the columns. Okay, so for here you're going to then specify the name of the database that you want to call your exact database. For mine, this is going to be my student underscore management underscore project. Okay, so after this is done, the next thing that okay, sorry, I have to specify that this is the database, which is DB. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is, because I want a situation where every piece of information is going to have a time and date stamp attached to them when they get to the database. So this is where I'm going to include that. Well, let me just show you, give you an example. So here you can see all of this piece of information that has been taken down from that GUI has a timestamp attached to them. So this is where we're going to try to create a parameter for that detection. Okay, so here I'm going to then say, so for here I'm going to say then I'm going to use my detect types. Okay, so this detect types is going to help us through our SQLite. database to detect the time that each piece of information has been taken down to the database. Okay, then we need to use that, and then before my SQLite3 again, the parse and columns. Okay, so this is going to help us to detect that piece of information. Okay, all right, so for the next stage is, so actually this part is to detect the time. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. All right, so now I'm going to establish a variable to return a cursor for the connection, and this is going to be my cursor. This is going to be the variable for that cursor connect dot cursor, and then my parenthesis. All right, so this is just going to help us to return a cursor for our database connection. Okay, so now for the next step, the next stage, I'm just going to then go up and import my date and time, because this is going to require you to import your date and time. Okay, so I'm going to go up here and then import date time. And after that is done, I'm going to create a variable that would be holding this date and time, that for where this is going to be detecting it from. Okay, so that variable is what I'm going to be using along the line of code. Okay, so I'm just going to call this current date time. And then I'm just going to say my date time. This is where it's going to be holding it for us. Date time dot now. Okay, so that is it. Now I can go down to my code and I can comfortably continue to the next stage. All right, so next step is use the connect variable and execute a connection. Now this is where we will execute an SQL statement. Okay, so here I'm going to say connect dot execute. And then I would use an SQL statement to create a table for the database. Okay, so here is where I'm going to start by saying create table if not exists. Now this is going to help us to create a table. That's if that table does not exist, it's going to create it, but if it does, it's going to return the message down to you that the table does exist. Okay, so now for the name of my table, I would use this name, student management projects. Okay, and then this is where I'm going to then create my columns for the exception of the data that would be going into that will be coming out from the entry fields. Okay, so here the first table is going to be our student ID. Okay, and this is going to be text, not null. The second one is going to be our first name. Okay, so if you can see here, we have them accordingly. So this is how it's going to be arranged. These are the columns that are going to be created down for the database. Okay, so we have this here, we have the first name, and this is going to be in the form of text, not null. Okay, let me get this over here. The reason why we're using a text form is because if you look closely, the entry fields are in form of text. So that is why they are the way I'm opening the table for that purpose. Okay, the second one is going to be our last name. and it's a text. Then the third is going to be our date of birth. We're going to do date underscore of birth. That. Next is going to be our religion. Next is going to be class. Next is going to be father underscore name. Next is going to be mother name. Next is going to be our home address. After home address, we're having gender. And after gender, we're having our country. So our variable is representing that. So we're going to say country. Next is the phone number of the student. Then the next of kin spot is going to be name underscore name of next of kin. And then we have the phone number for next of kin. Then taking this off here. Then the last is going to be the timestamp. So this is going to help us to get the time that each information goes into the database. Okay, so this is where I'm just going to create a column for that. I'm going to call it a timestamp, and it's going to detect it through the timestamp. Okay, so this timestamp, this is it for this current date. This is where we're going to be getting it from. Remember, we have already given a parameter for detection here. Okay, so this is where this is going to work for this. Timestamp is going to be detecting that from this parameter here. Okay, after that now is to then use our cursor for the connection. Okay, so I'm going to say cursor dot execute. We're going to execute that statement there. Okay, not really. So here is where we're going to say select. Okay, so here I should specify this to be a table so we can understand, can know the difference here. Or here it's going to be a table. Okay, and then, so we don't bear the same name as the database. Okay, so just for this purpose, I'm trying to make it different. All right, so I'm having select or from select everything from the student management project table. Put this here and paste this here. Okay, so after this is done, the next stage is so now we have put in our statement for creating the database and the table for these columns. And then we have our columns as well under the table. So the next thing is for this to be created on the DB browser. So here, this is the DB browser we would use to view the table that we are creating via this IDE. All right. So after this, now there are different. There are four different parts for you to confirm that this table has been created. First I'm going to print a statement that telling us that the table has been created. Secondly is there's a message will be popped up on a message box to tell us the same thing. Thirdly, we're going to see this student management project file created down here. And fourthly, on the folder you have created for this project, this is mine. Now you can see there is no DB file here. But once that has been executed, the file is going to be existing on this folder. So those are four different ways you can confirm that the file has been created. Okay, so now I'm going to start by printing the statement. I'm going to say print table created successfully. Next is going to be a message from our message box. Okay, giving us an information that table has been created. So I'm going to say database created. Next is then to commit these changes. And after that is done so basically this is to give a comment here. This is going to these changes should be made to the connection. And then we're going to then close this connection. So we're done. Okay, so let me run this for us to, all right, let's confirm this is complete. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so I'm having some tiny errors that can occur. So we have to ensure that everything is properly done. Ensure to include your comma so that we do not experience error here. Okay, all right, so here I haven't closed this chapter here. So this is how this should be here. All right, I don't think there's any other problem here again. So that is it. Okay, so now I can run this. Okay, so for the sake of creating the database, you can decide to just put in anything here. This is not going to be stored down. Just want to confirm that this database is going to be created. This is from the register button. Right, it is database created. Okay, so that's the first confirmation. Second is here, table created successfully. Thirdly, you can see the file has been created here. And fourth, I told you that's going to appear on your folder. All right, there it is for mine. So these are different ways of confirming that your table has been created. And last but not the least is from your DB browser. Now you can go down to your DB browser, okay, to display that table. Look for the folder that you created for this project and then open your database here. Now you can see mine. This is mine and this has been created. So we are on track. All right, so the next thing we're going to do now is okay, so now the next step is we're going to then try to put the information. We'll be able to type things on the GUI and then it's going to be stored in the database. Okay, so after the storage, we are going to, if you try to put in an already existing ID, we're going to get a message that, oh, this ID does exist and all of that. So that's the next phase that we're going to take right now. Okay, all right, so let me get this away. So before we start that, we will have to then open this database because initially we had closed it, but we still have more things we need to work on and get more results from the database. So we have to open up the database again by simply just taking this out, commenting on that, and then we can proceed to the next stage. So for the next stage, I'm going to use a variable. So this variable is going to help us to do all of the existing and all that. So I'm going to say use this variable called selection, and then in this brackets use an Sqlite statement to select everything from my table here, which is this. I'm going to copy this and paste it over here. Okay, where where um where the student ID. Okay, so I think I should rather copy this from here so I do not experience any error here. Okay, and then just paste this here, and then import this. All right, so this line of code is basically to check for an existing student ID. Remember, I told you before that if you try to put in and already let's assume this is number one and this number one already exists in the database, and you try to use the same ID to register some other candidate or some other students, you're definitely going to experience an error. Okay, so let's just say, okay, so I'm just trying to show you something. Okay, so and then I try to register this, I'm going to get a message that this ID does exist, right? And look closely. After I did that and this popped up, every other piece of information that you have put down here has been wiped off. So this is exactly what we're going to be doing now. Okay, so I'm just going to go here. So this should return a message to us that if that ID does exist, we should get a message. Okay, so now for the next, we're going to say if, okay, no. So the next is to use our cursor connection to execute that line of code, okay, by including the exact entry field that would be getting that piece of information from. And the entry field is our student ID, all right? So here now I'm going to say cursor dot execute. So this is going to execute this for us, right? We're going to make use of this line of code here, and then call out the name of that entry field that we will be working with. So the entry field is our entry ID entry name dot get. Okay, so now it's going to check if that certain ID does exist. It's going to fetch it for us, and then remember I said if that ID exists, it's going to wipe every other piece of information that is on that entry field. So that is what we're going to do here. So after that, if that exists, that's if the cursor, which is executing this statement here, if it does exist, then it should fetch it and then let us know. It should let us know by giving us a piece of information on a message box. And while doing that, every other piece of information that you have imputed on the entry field is going to be wiped out. So here I'm going to include all of the entry fields. Okay, so I have them right here. Copy this, just paste them here. So I would not be using this string variable, so I'm just simply going to get this out. Okay, let's see, I'm going to do this out. Okay, so here I'm going to say dot delete, and this is going to help us to delete everything from the beginning to the end. And that's okay. So for our option menu and um, radio button, we will not be making use of this other widget to delete the piece of information. So for this, it's going to be different. I'm going to set it rather. So and say dot set, and then for this one it's going to be set to 0, and then for my option menu this is going to be set to default. All right, so let me show you here. Okay, all right, it's just like this. Okay, this is the default setting here. Okay, so let me just put in everything, just put something here. I want to show you how this option menu is going to set back to its default. Okay, so I could reset this, and then it goes, this is the default here, select country. So that is what I'm going to be doing. So this is how it's going to be here. This is how it's going to be set, and the gender, which is the option menu, is going to be set to 0. So that is it for that. Okay, so this is our ID. This is also to delete from 0 to the end. Okay, so that's pretty much it. And another one is going to be our picture frame. The picture frame is going to go back to this default as well. So that is what we should do now. Okay, so first of all is to use our okay, no, before we start with that, let us do the text frame. So this text frame as well is going to set to 0. Okay, so we do that. So I'm going to call the name of my text frame, which is this. I'm going to copy this from here, put up here, paste this here, and then dot delete, and then this is going to help us delete this. Okay, so this is how to set it to the default. And now for the picture frame to set down to the default setting is going to be this way. So I'm just going to copy my register button because this is under my register button. So I'm just going to copy that and paste this here. Then configure this button to do a certain thing for me. To configure this, to give me a state of normal. Okay, so this is going to normalize the frame for me. And I would be creating a variable to help me perform that. And this is going to hold my photo image. And the file that I want to be there is going to be my admin file, this admin image, which is this image that is here. So this is the default image that I will post in here. Okay, so that is it. And then I'm going to then configure that LBL, that label that we are using for the frame, which is this label here we created for the frame here. Okay, you can decide to just copy this, go up, then configure that as well to an image, to that image that has been created here, that I have put here. So I'm going to copy this variable here and then paste this down here. And after that, I would then use my lbl.image. Then and paste this same image down here. Copy this, paste it down here. And after that, my ing, which I have made universal or global here, is what I'm now calling down here to form this for me. Okay, so now this is going to help us to put down every other frame, entry box, text frame to the default setting. This is how it is. So if that ID does exist, then every other piece of information there is going to be deleted. And you're going to get a message here on the message box giving you an error that the ID already exists. Okay, so I think we can try this now. Okay, I have to use my return statement. So I'm going to use my return. So you have to return back after all of this. So after this, so if this is false, then the next is to insert this piece of information into the database. Else, I'm going to use this variable, insert this piece of strings with this SQL statement into the table. So I'm still going to copy this and then paste this down here. So we're going to insert the piece of information into this table. And here I'm going to then include the table, which are the columns we have down here on our database. So here I'm going to call out all of these columns down here. So I'm going to start with the student ID. Here I'm going to copy this. Okay, guys, this is going to take a while, but you can exercise patience. That's cool. So use a comma, student ID first, and you can skip all these parts. The next stage, okay? Because this is just going to take a while. So we have the first name, then we have the last name. Ensure to always include your comma, okay? So you do not experience error. And the next is this. Let's get this away from here. We have a date of birth. The next is our religion. So that's class, class, father, name. Next is the mother's name. Please ensure to include this the exact way it is on the column. Mother's name, we have our home address. Next is going to be the gender. Okay, so after gender, we are going to be having the country. That. Next is our phone number, which is the phone number for the students. And then this, give us that. And so after the phone number, the next is going to be the name of their next of kin. Then we have this here. And then I'm going to put that down here and give a comma to that. And then we're going to have the phone number of the next of kin down here. Just this here, give a comma. And then the last but not the least is going to be the timestamp that we have created for time detection. I'm going to copy this piece of column and then place it right here. Okay, so after this is done, I'm just going to close this space and then give an equivalent value of what we have down here. Okay, so you have to ensure the number, you have to be sure of the number of values you have down here and give the equivalent question mark. The question mark basically is, it could be anything that the system or the database is going to be taking. So that is just the way to represent that. Okay, so first of all, you have to count what you have here. Just be sure that this is really complete because this is the area where we make the most mistakes. All right, so for here, all of this, I should be having a total of 15, but it's good to always confirm. I'm going to count this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so here I'm correct. All right, so in here, I'm going to give an equivalent of what I have down here. So this is going to help us to represent that. I'm going to have this. All right, so let's see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so let's make a 14 out of this first, then include the last one. Make it 15. Simply copy this and then paste it here. And the last is going to be this. Okay, so now we can still confirm this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so that is complete. Okay, all right, so now after this stage, the next is to use our cursor connection to execute this line of code by including all the entry fields. So now you can call down the entry fields that we're going to be getting all of this information from. Okay, so here I'm going to make use of my cursor dot dot execute. So I'm going to use this variable that I've created to insert the piece of information from this entry fields down here. So I'm going to call all of my entry fields here. So I'm going to say my ID first dot get. Okay, this gets. That's the first one, ID entry. The second is going to be the first name entry dot get. Second is going to be the last name entry that gets. It's going to get all of that information from there. And then we have our DOB, which is our date of birth entry that gets. And then we're going to have our religion. Okay, so this has, you still have to be extremely careful and observant. Ensure that these are exactly the way it is down there, and ensure that it's also complete as well. And then this is going to have my class.get as well, comma. After that, we have my father's name dot get, and then the mother name dot get. And next is going to be our home address entry dot get. Let me get this out of here. After our home address, I'm going to have in the gender that gets, and then variable which is representing our country. I'm going to like to get the piece of information from that as well. And then we have a phone number entry that gets, and then our next of kin entry that gets. Let me get this out of here. Move this to the next line. And then the last, okay, so we're having this one here, which is the phone number of the next of kin. So I'm going to say phone number next of kin dot get. And then lastly is going to be our current date. So this is where we're going to then make use of this variable here, which we have created for detecting the date time now. I'm simply going to copy this and then take it down to where I'm going to have it. So this is it. Okay, so let me show you this. So this is the current date and timestamp. This is where it's going to give us our time. All right, so here it is here. Okay, so all that's been said and done. The next stage is to, okay, let's see. Okay, So after this is done, so the next is to give us a message in a message box that this piece of storage is successful. And then I'm going to get this in the form of info, and give this a success. So successful storage. So after that is done, we should commit these changes to this connection. And now we can then close this connection. Okay, guys, so let us run this. Okay, so let's see and hope everything is correct. Ensure that your commas are properly used, and ensure the values are equivalent to this, and ensure that this entry fields here is also equivalent to what you have here. So I'm going to see 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15. All right, so everything is correct here, so I can run this. Now let's try to insert this piece of information into the database. Okay, so I'm going to give my first student number 1, and her name is going to be Queeneth. So this is Queeneth, and soul name is going to be Ashley, and her date of birth is going to be 3rd May 2009. And her religion is, she's a Christian, and class, she could be in senior high, depending on what you want to use. So let me get this out. All right, so father's name is Mr. Joseph. Joseph. Oh, sorry. This is Joseph Ash. And then for mother's name, she's Mrs. Jane Ashley. And then for home address, you could give number 31 Ashford Street. She's a female. In the country, well, everyone. Phone number, say whichever. And then for next of kin is going to be that Zenith. Okay, so whatever you want to use. And then for the phone number, whichever one. And we're going to try to upload a piece of photo for this particular person. Let's see. Well, maybe she's a, okay, let me, where I save most of my pictures. So I could use this young lady's picture here. And then, so first of all, when this is successful, we're going to get a message in the message box that this is successful. Okay, and then we'll go down to our database here where we have our table, and we'll refresh this, and then we'll get a piece of information stored on this data. Okay, so let's do that. Now you can see the message box is telling us that this is successful. So now let's go down to our database to get the information. Now you can see all of this piece of information are now appeared on this text frame. Okay, so in my database, let's see. All right, guys, so now I have my first student, and this is her information. Now you can see from the timestamp here, I'm having the time that this person was here, right? So let's see, we can move this out to see the time. All right, so guys, look at the time that this got in here. So everything now is working fine. Okay, so we're done with our register button. We've worked on our upload, we've worked on our print. So next is going to be our reset and exit button. So let me get this out. Okay. All right, guys. Okay, guys, so now we have to work on our reset button. Okay, so in this reset button, oh, okay, I think we need to confirm first of all the part where an ID does exist. Okay, so here we already have an existing ID number 1. And then let's see if we can still make use of this ID that exists here. So I'm going to run this and then use the same ID number and try to register someone else here. Okay, and then I say there, and then whatever you put here, that okay, religion, okay, so doesn't mean whatever. Sorry, so this is just an example. So class, I'm gonna say that junior or high, and the father's name Mr. Venice, Mrs. Jane. Okay, the address is going to be the address, let's just say number 21 Ben Street. All right, so this is just for testing purpose. Okay, this is a mail, Holland number, that Mr. Chest, phone number. Okay, so this is just basically to test this, and then you're going to see that because an ID does exist, okay, it's going to help us. It's not going to paste this on this frame. So pasting it here actually means that it's going to be stored in the database, and then we should get a message that is being stored in the database. But if it does, we're going to get an ID, a message popped up on a message box telling us that the ID does exist. Okay, so everything has been reset to 0. So including our option menu and our radio button and our option menu. Okay, so that is it for that. So now let's work on our reset button. So we're just going to go down to our button, and then we have our reset here. Let's give a command name to this command and give a reset. Then copy this, pick it up, give it here, and define that button. So basically what we're going to do is the same thing we have here. This is just to copy all of this, copy this, and then paste it down here. This is the same as reset. Everything is going to be reset. Let's run this. See, put in whatever you want to put in here. So we're trying to see how this is going to reset all of these fields for us. Click on that. Okay. Did I copy the message box here? Let's see. I think I copied. Oh, I copied the message box. That's why I'm having. Oh, message already exists. So this is going to be out. Okay, let's do this again. All right, let's go. One, this, that, female, whatever, that, and this should clear this for us. Okay, we also, let's see, whatever you put here, and then that. Let's try our picture frame. Um, this should also reset our picture frame for us. So reset this, there it is. Okay, so that is it for our reset button. The last but not the least is going to be our exit button. So this should help us to exit that window. So I'm going to give a command to that and say exit. and then copy this, pick it up, and then define that button, parentheses. Okay, guys, so now I'm going to declare a variable. I'm just going to call this exit. Okay, and this exit is going to give us a message box. So when you click on that message box, it's going to access a question, just like what we have here. It should pop up like this. Do you want to exit? Do you want to exit? If you say yes, then this line of code is going to run for you for this window to disappear. But if isn't, it's going to remain the same. All right, so that's what we should do here. So that message box is what we're going to do here. So message box asking us if it's a yes or no. Okay, in there, going to ask us, do you want to exit? It's a question. Okay, so if you say yes, which is the exit, if you decide to exit, then the window, okay, so let's see, this is our window. So you're going to call the name of the window, the GUI, which is Windows. We use it for this. So I'm going to say Windows dot destroy. So this is going to destroy the window. Okay, but if no, it's going to remain the same. All right, guys, let's try this. So I'm going to say, let's put that. Okay, so if I say no, this stays back. If I say yes, this is going to go away. So next is to work on our print function. Okay, so let me show you the functionalities of this print function, exactly what it does. Okay, so now let me just give a new student ID. I could say number 90 is assigned to, let's say, Stephanie, and then the last name is going to be Zenith, and then the date of birth is going to be 3rd of February 2009, and then a religion, let's say she's a Christian, and then okay, so this is going to be here, and then for a class I could say she is in senior high, and then for her father's name, her father's name is Mr. Mark Zenith, and then for her mother's name, Mrs. Mandy Zenith. This is Mandy Zenith. Okay, so I want to show you how this our print function works. The different stages is going to pass in order to transport or export this piece of information down to a platform where you can then directly print from. Okay, so now for the home address, let's assume that's number 30 Madison Street. Okay, so Stephanie is a female and maybe she's a Jamaican, and then and there's a phone number. Okay, and the name of next of kin, it could be Mr. Ben Sawyer. And then let's see, and then for the phone number, this is going to be that. And then we decide to upload a picture for this person. Okay, so let me just use this one. And then I have this piece of information here is going to be registered here. So this is successfully stored in the database. And then I want to print this piece of information. So I'm going to say print. So there's a message box that's popped up here if I want to. So if I say yes, it's going to export this piece of information here down to a platform where I can then maybe export down to Excel or any other format that I want. Okay, so here if I say no, it's not going to work, but if I say yes, now this is what's going to happen. This has been converted to a text format here, and the piece of information is here, and here on this platform is giving us okay, this is like a platform for you to then rename this your work. So here I can decide to rename this. I could say, so this is Zenith profile. And then once I click on save, okay, so this has opened a temporal, this is the temporal file here, and then I can decide to rename this, and I save this, and this is going to be, we're going to have a successful conversion. Okay, so in order for you to confirm that truly this has worked, we're going to get a message. Okay, um, okay, so I can use this to then open that file. Okay, all right, so this has been taken down to this format. So this is a PDF format. So from here now, this is the piece of information has been exported down to this PDF area. Here now you can decide to export as PDF used down to, okay. So from here you can also use an Excel sheet and all of that from the same angle here. Okay, so that is pretty much it of what this could do for us. And here you can as well directly print this file from here. Okay, so this is quite easier. All right, so that is why this is what I did with my print functionality. Okay, all right, so let me get this out. So that is what I'm going to show you how to do on this print function. Right, so let me get this out and let us start. Okay, so now I can go down to my print function key, my print button, there it is, and then give a command for that. So I'm going to give a command, and then I'm going to use my lambda. So my lambda is actually to help me create an anonymous function, right? So after that, I can give the name of the function that I want. So I'm going to call this print. Okay, so here I can then give the area that I want this piece of information to be taken from, and it's going to be taken from my frame here. So then I'm just going to include my frame, and the name of my frame is student details frame. Just going to copy this and then take it down to my print button. Just this here, and I'm going to paste this inside here. And what I wanted to do is to get every piece of information from the beginning to the end of the screen. Okay, all right, so let me do this like this so we can see this clearly. So it's going to get this for me from the beginning to end of the screen for me. All right, so that is it. That is how we're going to name this function key. All right, so after this now, what we're going to do is to then go to the top of the screen and okay, so and import your OS. All right, so mine has already been imported, but after doing that, you can decide to you can import your OS if already it has not, because while doing this, while trying to create this date text, the OS is going to be automatically imported. Okay, so if you haven't, just go and import your OS. That's the next stage. Okay, so after that is done, what we're going to do is then define the print function. Okay, so I can go here and define the print. If my parentheses, and then define that. Okay, so like you remember, if I want to print this piece of information, once I click on this message box pops up. So that is what we're going to do here. So the first thing is to create a variable for this our message box, and this is going to be our message box dot ask. So this is going to be asking us if yes or no we want to print out. Okay, so this is a question, and it's going to ask us, do you want to print the details? So if yes, that's if the print question, which is if yes, then what is going to happen is we're just going to create a temper file that is going to hold our temp file here for us. It's going to be in our mk temp. So this is it, and this is going to first of all be in a text form. Now you remember the first stage is to be in a text form. So if I click on this and I say yes, this is it. This is going to be the temp form. This is what is going to pop up first. Okay, so let me get that out. So this is what is going to happen here. It's going to be in the text form. And then next is to then, all right, so the next is to all right, so actually we need to understand what's that OS. So the OS actually is actually a module. So this OS is the basic thing here. This module provides a generic low and high level interfaces for creating temporal files and directories. Okay, so that's what this our OS does for us. Like I showed you, if you do this, this is going to help us to provide a generic low and high level interfaces for creating temporal files and directories. Now we see temporal files and we have directories here already for us to rename and all of that. Okay, so that's what our OS does for us there. All right, so let's proceed back. Let's go back to what we're doing. I felt I should give more explanation to what we're doing. So after this is done, the next is to then be able to open that file and then write it in text. Okay, so I'm going to say open and then call the name of this temp file that I have opened here, that I have created here, right here. I'm going to call it out, and this is going to be rewritable. You can actually rewrite that file, just renaming it. And then this is going to be in txt. Okay. Okay, I'm experiencing an error here because I have not passed this txt. I have not passed the argument here in this parameter here. And then because this print is going to be in a txt format, so it's going to be here. And then now the error is gone away. So it's really good for you to pass that over there. And now I'm going to make use of my OS, which I told you the use or the necessity for using our OS. Is a really good module. So this is going to help us to then provide a low and high level interfaces. Okay, so you can use that properly. All right, so our OS, and then we're going to use our start format, start file, and then include our temp file, and then we would be able to print. So that is just it for this. So this is going to help us to work to print out every piece of information. All right, so now let's start to print and see how our print button is going to work here. So I'm going to try to register new students, And after I have done that, I will ensure that this is going to be displayed on this text frame. And then I will be able to print from this text frame. Okay, so I'm going to say, let's assume the first name is Brandon, and then the last name is Sportsman. And then for the date of birth, it's going to be 9th July 2009. And then religion, this is a Christian. And then for the class, well, let's just maintain this one. It's a senior high. And for the father's name, I'm going to call this person Mr. Cooper, sportsman. And Mrs. Jane, sportsman as well. And then for the home address, I'm going to use number 13 Ashford Street. And this is a male, use whatever country. And phone number can be any of that. So for the next of kin is going to be Mr. Marcus Frank. And then for his phone number is going to be so whatever it is. And I'm just simply going to upload a picture of my choice. So I already have few stock up somewhere. Let's assume this is Mr. Cooper, or sorry, Mr. Brandon. And then I'm going to register in the database, and now I can print. Now the message boxes pop up like we have done that already from the code. So if I say no, this is going to work. If I print, yes, this is going to work. And here, this has been converted to this text format. I can decide to change the name. So the name of the owner of this profile is, this is Brandon's profile, underscore profile. And then I'm just simply going to store this in the folder that I have created for this project. I'm going to save it up here. Then it's going to be here. So after that, we are going to have a pop-up screen that's going to direct us to where we're going to directly print this piece of information. Okay, so there it is. So this has been exported down to this PDF format here. Okay, so from here you can decide to export this file. You can also maybe edit, and you can export this to Excel, to whatever channel you want to do this. Okay, so this is a platform for you to then be creative with the piece of information you have, and you can as well print from here directly. Okay, so to confirm that this piece of information has been stored in a PDF format, you can go to your file or the folder you have created for this project. This is mine, and it's up here. There it is, Brandon profile. Okay, so that is it for our print function. Okay, so our reset is working. I will register, I'll upload, so I can decide to reset this. This is working, and then exit this window as well. Okay guys, so that is it for this project. I'm so glad we were able to do this together. Please, if you do enjoy my videos, do not forget to give a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, like my videos as well, and leave comments. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity. I hope to see you next time. Okay, thanks for keeping up with Simple Golden Style with Steph. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.